little did I know what was going to happen. But when I opened that piece of paper or that envelope, I saw a $60,000 check. And the page below it, big red letters. Still in my head today. It's account closed. Right then and there, like my heart sunk. I had $60,000 to my name to be able to pay the bills and raise my kid. And I wasn't making a ton of money because my husband had always been the breadwinner and he had always made very good money. So I never had to worry about it.
Gloria Steinem once said, "We will never solve the feminization of power until we solve the masculinity of wealth." Barbara Provost and Maggie Nielsen are the team at Purse Strings that will help you navigate the ins and outs of financial independence so that you can be financially fearless. This is Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about.
All right, so this is our 100th episode of Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about. And the episode brings together three incredible women with three different journeys, all pointing to one big truth, that when life throws us the unexpected, how do you financially prepare and respond? So on our podcast today, we are bringing you three amazing women to share insights from their own stories. We've had them on our podcast before. Their stories have resonated with our female audiences. So we've invited them back to share another blurb about their stories so women can hear them again, learn from them, and perhaps you'd want to go back and listen to their episode again. They're powerful stories. They're stories we can all learn from, and they're stories that really resonate with why Purse Strings is in existence. We're about women helping women, getting in front of any financial concerns, questions, planning that you may have so that you can live a financially fearless life full of choices. So with that, I would like to introduce to you Candy Wolff. Candy, go ahead and share your story.
All right. Well, thank you again for having me today. I appreciate it. I'm Candy Wolff. I am a mother of three growing boys. And my story begins in January of 23. My husband and I went to Cabo to celebrate my 50th birthday because Cabo is our heaven on earth, I guess we always would call it. So it was where we wanted to go and try to reconnect. My husband had been laid off, so he hadn't been working some previous years before. Just a little backstory. So we go to Cabo and we have a decent week, and it gets to be, we're supposed to come home January 28th. And the morning of January 27th, I woke up and I'd found that he had passed in the middle of the night. So here I am. It's just the two of us in Cabo. I don't speak English, and my husband had passed. So, I call down to the front desk frantically screaming, my husband's not breathing, he's dead. They send up security people. They announce, that he is dead. And then pretty much that was hell right there, but then it just spiraled from there. The police ended up stealing everything from me, like all of my cash. They stole anything valuable in our room. So then I ended up actually in the police station, being interrogated for a few hours, even though they had already done the autopsy. So they knew how he had passed. So really it was 4 days of hell there, not even realizing what I was going to go home to as well. So being by myself down in Mexico, my two youngest were back at home. So here I am stressed about what I'm going to do down there. And then, I have kids to take care of at home. So when it was 4 days and I finally was given the right to be able to fly home. I had him cremated, which was a whole nother financial issue when you're trying to pay for something with credit cards and you're overseas. All the credit cards kept declining because they had no idea, that I was trying to charge $1,700, in Mexico. So trying to deal with that. But then the real financial nightmare actually started when I got back home. My youngest was a junior in high school, and I had always asked my husband financially, like where we were, over the last few years. I knew it was tight, but I always asked, where are we financially? What do we need to do? And I was told, don't worry about it. Finances are fine. Once I get a job, I'm going to put the money back. Don't worry about it. So we had a very traditional marriage. I didn't worry about it. I went off to work and figured he knew exactly what he was doing. When I got back home, I had a stack of mail, obviously, that I was going through. And I got one from our financial planner. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the first time I'm actually going to know how much money I have, where my kids and I are going to actually sit. Because that was the one thing my son asked me when I walked through the door from Kabul crying is, Mom, do we get to stay at home? Do we get to stay in our home? And I'd said, you know what? I will do anything and everything to keep us here. Little did I know, what was going to happen. But when I opened that piece of paper or that envelope, I saw a $60,000 check. And the page below it with big red letters, it's still in my head today. It's account closed. Right then and there, like my heart sunk. I had $60,000 to my name to be able to pay the bills and raise my kid. And I wasn't making a ton of money because my husband had always been the breadwinner and he had always made very good money. So I never had to worry about it. Well, come to find out, so I have $60,000. Great, but people keep telling me I need to pay my mortgage, I need to pay the utilities. Well, I had no idea. I couldn't get into his cell phone. I couldn't get into his computer. Everything is electronic. I didn't even know who to pay the mortgage to. And thank goodness my son was able to help me dig through things to find out who I need to pay the mortgage to. My name was on the deed, thank God. It was not on the mortgage. But utilities, my name wasn't on any of it. And then when you go to the bank to let them know your husband is deceased, they stop payment on every single automatic withdrawal. So therefore, nothing was getting paid. And I had no idea. I mean, they do it for your safety, which I get, but it added a whole nother layer of stress. So not only am I grieving the loss of my husband, trying to plan a funeral, I'm also dealing with this financial nightmare of how am I going to survive? How am I going to pay these bills? And, what bills do I owe? And how am I going to figure out how to pay them? So it literally was weeks of my dad and I sitting and going through banks, printing out bank statements, trying to highlight, okay, well, this is who your gas is through. This is who you need to pay the electric, getting your name put on stuff. Well, when you pass away in another country, I had a Mexican death certificate. I didn't have a U.S. death certificate. So then I couldn't really do anything until the embassy released a U.S. death certificate to me. So my hands were tied even more so. And we did have life insurance, but it took months for that to come through. So literally I was stressed for months on, figuring $60,000 is not going to last a long time, especially when, my youngest was playing club volleyball and, just getting ready for college. So you have all these other things in your mind as well as how am I just going to live day to day today? And it was an absolute nightmare. It was a learning experience. And I had my head buried in the sand. That's about the best way I could put it. And I am so frustrated with myself. That's what I did. I just lived, I worked, I spent my money however I wanted to. I didn't save. And then your world literally gets pulled out from underneath you and you don't even know where to turn. And that's, where I was for months of just trying to figure everything out. And then as well, having to go back to work right away because I had to pay the bills.
And so, Candy, that $60,000 was your total assets in terms of your retirement savings and all of that, right?
Everything. Yeah, everything was gone. That $60,000 was it.
So, what did you learn about kind of like money and yourself during this time?
I learned that I was not diligent with my money, that I just kind of, like a kid, felt like, well, I get paid every couple weeks and I was responsible for the kids. My husband was responsible for the bills. And I was so frustrated with myself that I actually got to that point in life that, here I was 50 years old and I didn't have a penny to my name because I wanted a new purse. I went and bought it. The kids wanted some new outfit. I went and bought it. I never even thought about my future and saving. It's my husband's job. He's the one who's doing it. He's taking care of the retirement. So yeah, I learned that I was very stupid for one, and that I don't want anybody else to be in the situation that I'm in. I guess that's the biggest thing is it was so stressful. It was so hard. And if I can help somebody open their eyes, then I feel like it's worth what I went through.
Yeah. And I think a lot of women are going to learn from your story. And I know you wrote a book, Lost and Found in Mexico, really explaining your story. And you spoke at our event and really talked about the need of learning about your money, being partners in having those conversations, and realizing that you need to really learn about where your money's going and all of that. But, don't be so hard on yourself. It's not unlike many women. We were not taught financial literacy in school, and money was taboo to talk about. And I think many of us are raised in that situation and too often are found ourselves in situations like that. And that's why we have purse strings, is so that women can come to a safe place to start learning what they need to know to make smart financial decisions. And your story is a powerful one. We're so glad that you've come forward and shared it. It's a very vulnerable story, but thank you for being here. Let's circle over to Claudia now. Claudia, you also have a very powerful story that we would like you to share with our audience as well.
Yeah, thank you. So I am from Germany. I used to be a professor of linguistics, taught English as a second language and linguistics classes because I was told early on that I couldn't be in the financial services industry, which I had wanted to do after graduating from high school because I was a woman and this was a men's industry. And what was I thinking? So I was basically told my financial services industry career would end up as a bank teller because I would get married and have children. So I didn't know how to get in Germany. It's a very different system. I didn't want to go to another bank where I had started to hear the same message. So I went into academia and then came over here as a research scholar to teach classes, and then met my now ex-husband. He was also a professor at the same university, and we fell in love, and we had 4 boys in 4.5 years. He wanted a big family. I wanted to go back to work after having twins, but I gave in and had more kids. I'm glad I had them all. I love them all. However, I kept my foot in the door because I always wanted to go back to work because I felt really strongly there's more to life than being in the house with kids, and I didn't get all this education for nothing. And then the marriage kind of started eroding because it's felt like a moving target. I felt like I could never do anything right. And so I wrestled for a long time with what was going on and figuring out what's happening in my marriage. And I grew up with this idea that, you persist, you work things out in the marriage. And I was very loyal and grew up with this idea that you owe your children a home with 2 parents. And so years after years of trying and constantly running into a moving target, I started journaling. And that really helped me gain a lot of clarity about what was happening in my life because I would write down things that had happened in the household every day. And then I would revisit my entries later with some distance and then kind of saw what was actually happening in my life. And it was really through that clarity, through the journaling, and also reading some books about that friends of mine had suggested I read to, gain some clarity, that I realized I wasn't doing my boys any favor by staying in a relationship because I felt like I wasn't aligned anymore with where I was, and it wasn't a good relationship model for the boys. And so realizing that, I also became increasingly worried that from feeling eroded and stressed out from what was going on in the marriage, I would eventually get sick and I couldn't be the best mom for my children. And I might also even not be around at some point because what if I got sick and died? Because I was just totally stressed out and eroded all the time. So it was really through the journaling that I gained this clarity that I had to get out. And I didn't know how because my boys were, I had 4 boys in 4.5 years. So when I realized I had to get out, my youngest one was 2. And, then it took some time to figure out, well, how are we going to do this with 4 boys? I don't really know, but I just know that I have to get out because it's just not a good role model for my children. And so I got to, through the journaling and the clarity that I gained from that, I got to this clarity that if I owed my children anything, it was not necessarily a home with 2 parents living together, but a supportive childhood where they could thrive and an environment where I could be the best mom for them and be that supportive, grounding rock for them.
And so I know from there you kind of had a story about your ring, which was such a smart move. Can you kind of share that with our audience?
Yeah. So once I realized that I needed to make a change, it took me some time to identify an attorney that I felt comfortable with. But I had no idea how to retain him because my boys were very little. So I was working very part-time, teaching sporadically here and there just to keep my foot in the door. I didn't have any savings. I didn't have any control over the money, no say, no seat at the table in about any financial things. So I knew I had to retain an attorney and get out, but I didn't know how. And so as the marriage continued to become increasingly contentious, I found myself looking at my wedding ring one day and thinking, what meaning does this even still have on my finger? And then it was really at that moment that I realized, well, maybe this is my way out. So I decided to take it to a jewelry and diamond store the next day and had it appraised to see what it was worth. And it was valued slightly higher than the retainer that I needed for the attorney. And so I negotiated with them about creating synthetic stones that looked identical so I wouldn't raise any suspicion at home with the ring off my finger. And I had to wait 3 weeks for the stones to be cut just right. And so I went back 3 weeks later, switched out the original stones for the synthetic stones, and walked out with my big check. And then the next day, I took the big check to the attorney, and then he started the divorce proceedings. And I honestly had no idea what the path ahead would look like. But I just knew in my heart that moment that it was the right thing just to take that first step.
It's so clever. Yeah.
Share that story, Claudia, because so many women feel stuck, like in your situation. And think about it. You're such a bright, talented, smart woman, but you found yourself in a situation where you really needed to be creative to get out, right? And your hands were tied, but you thought outside the box and you took that brave step and you did it and you got out. And I think it's just a brilliant story of, heart and soul for your children and to really do what you needed to do to move your life forward. So, brava.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what has your relationship with money looked like since then?
Well, to be honest, for quite some time, I had a challenging relationship with money because the divorce took 2 years and then it was followed by an appeals court case that took another 4 years. And it was really challenging to live on the small amount of support I was getting and the small amount of income I was making from teaching at the time. So I really took a deep dive into what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to make an impact and help other people and create something bigger than myself, something bigger than myself that the boys could also benefit from. And it was really during this time that I found my way back to my earlier passion for the wealth management industry. And I was determined that I was going to succeed and that I was going to reclaim the financial independence that I had before my marriage. And I think it's really through the relentless challenge of having to be resourceful and dealing with such uncertainty and so little to get by on for such a long time that I've developed a really resilient and optimistic relationship with money. And I truly think that my resourcefulness and reinvention of myself to take control of the things that I can control come from a deep conviction that scarcity is a teacher, not a curse. And when I look back, somehow it always worked out. So somehow the resources I needed at certain times just showed up. So, for example, I got an unexpected tax refund when I had a big bill to pay that I couldn't otherwise have paid. And so there were other examples like that, and they've only solidified my resilient and optimistic relationship with money.
I love that. That's amazing. And so the last question I kind of want to ask while you're here is, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to women who feel that they are financially trapped?
That's a great question. I would say ask yourself what you can do with what you have to take that first step to get out of whatever is trapping you. And then take that first step to make a change, because if you trust the path, you will learn the other steps along the way. You're not going to know when you start, but they will just show up.
Wonderful. So, Amy, you gave us a whole new way of thinking about women in financial services, and it's such a natural fit. So why don't you share a little bit about what drew you to the industry and, what surprised you most about it?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, and it's really great to meet both Candy and Claudia. I can relate in so many ways to both of them. I've, since being in this business for the past 17 years, I've had 14 either clients or spouses of clients pass away, and only one person was over the age of 60. So that is one thing that has been very shocking. And I've learned so many lessons from all of these survivors. Like Claudia, when I started in the business, I had a 2-year-old son. And that motivation to learn this business, both for myself and his future and what I wanted to be able to promise him, and also the ability to remove any sort of cap from the impact that you can have beyond just money. Those things have just stayed with me throughout the tenure of my career, and I would say they just keep getting stronger. I have a very dear friend who has 2 grown daughters, and all of their lives, she said to them, money isn't everything, but it gives you choices. And I think for women, that ability, desire, and drive to be financially independent, that doesn't have a dollar amount attached to it. It's a knowledge and confidence that you know how to stand on your own 2 feet, whether that's within a relationship, a partnership with money, a business, your own life as an independent woman. However that can be realized for us as women, the need and desire from women to be in that position, I feel, is just getting stronger and stronger. More and more women recognize that their ability to be their best version of themselves for their kids, or for themselves, for their family, for their elderly parents, for their community, for the impact they want to have in the world, all of that gets better if they financially can stand on their own 2 feet.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And I think I'm sure you've seen that, time and time again. And so how has being a woman kind of shaped your approach differently when working with clients?
I think it is sometimes a male-female thing, and sometimes it's not fully gender-based, but some people are driven by their own success, their trophies, their recognition. That literally propels them forward, racing to a finish line after finish line. And those people can have enormous impact on the world. The more sort of female, gendered ideas that we're driven by the impact we have on others in the world. And I have seen men that exhibit those traits also. It's not only women, and there are some fiercely competitive women, but I do think we have a tendency to be fierce advocates for others. And so for me in my career, that idea of having an impact started with being an advisor and having an impact on my son. And then it grew to having an impact on my clients. And then it grew to having an impact on more women and other great people in this profession to have a stronger impact. That grew to leading a firm, that grew to industry involvement, and that grew to writing a book, because you realize that as much of an impact as you intend to have, it always feels kind of small. As the universe opens up to you and you realize how many more people need your help, want your help, could benefit from the knowledge that you've absorbed over the years from other people, that, that impact is a strong motivator for me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your book, Compound Impact, like what inspired it, and what do you hope readers will take away from it?
Well, my driving, force is impact on the profession and on Americans, on people being in this more solid financial position. And while it's intimidating to many people, it really truly is not rocket science. And so Compound Impact is about our profession and how I believe we most of the time do a partial job. And we can have so much of a greater impact if we can take responsibility for the potential we have, for the potential impact we have, so that, all of the people, I'm sure Candy met many people over the course of her life, and I'm sure her husband met many people, and for whatever reason, it was not front and center for them. And I think that those advisors could have done a better job of working on themselves, working on their communication, working on their ability to motivate them to sit down for 5 seconds and think about it. I mean, we have licenses, we have designations, we have training, we have experience, and we live very good lives. The least we can do is work a little harder to have a greater impact. And so the book is just about building trust, and it's about doing the entire job. It's about the potential impact we can have, and it's about being a really contributing member of your community in providing this confidence and accessibility to what it is we can do to help other people. So it's for leaders in the industry, it's for advisors, and it can help end clients also.
I love that. And you don't always know what the impact is you're making sometimes when you meet people, but sometimes those little pushes really can add up and really domino effect in people's lives. If you forced every meeting to have both spouses there, forced people to have kind of that conversation jointly, things could look really different, for better or for worse sometimes. But just knowing and having the information, it makes a huge impact. And so what do you want more women to know about financial careers or kind of money in general?
Well, I think they need to know that it is accessible. As my friend said, it gives you choices. And as Claudia said, things show up in your life. It's not, there are always resources. Whatever your career is, whatever your income level is, whatever your relationship around money with your partner or spouse is, there are resources. And we have to be sure to think that there are always choices. One question I was asked, I do some work in politics trying to help our legislators understand what it is we do and how important it is for us to have trust and not fear, right, in our relationship with the public. I had one legislative director ask me one time, she said, Amy, what do you tell people when they say, after I've, bought my eggs and paid my bills and done everything I need to do, there's no money left to save? What do you tell those people? And I said, I tell them that they're making a very big assumption. And that assumption is that every single decision they've made around money up until that point is more important than their family's financial security. And when you think about it that way, everyone does take a pause. Just like the tax refund that came to Claudia, there are resources everywhere. And if you can become a powerful steward of those resources for yourself and your family, and if as advisors we can think like that, we can think about relationships with clients as not just solving for today, but solving for the next 30 years, there is really an immense amount of opportunity all through.
That's an amazing response. I'm going to have to really write that one down and think about that more. I loved it. So thank you for that. I think we're going to go into a quick round of asking you each a question. And if you could give us a one-line answer, that'd be fantastic. So, Candy, let's start with you. What's one money lesson you wish more women knew?
This is something that I learned is tracking your spending monthly and making sure you know where like all your investments are and how they're doing and being an advocate for yourself.
Love it. Claudia?
I would say I wish more women knew the power of taking control of their financial future by joining the conversation because knowledge grows when you show up.
It's good.
Love it.
Amy?
Spending less and paying debt, those things don't create wealth. Wealth is created by saving money.
Love it. Okay, next question. Candy, what's next for you in your life, work, or the impact you want to make?
Yeah, well, super excited that I just published, I guess my next book was yesterday. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a grief journal to go along like with my book. So I want people to be able to go through and journal about themselves and what they're learning. And my impact is I want women to know that, like I said, they do have a say and they don't have to sit back, but demand that you need to be at those financial planning meetings with your husband, your spouse, whoever it is, because you deserve to know it's your money as much as it is his.
Love it. And congrats on that grief journal coming out. I think I'll have to journal more between that and Claudia's perspective of journaling. I think a lot of great things are coming out. So Claudia, what's next for you in life, work, or the impact you want to make?
Well, I'm on a mission to help more women feel empowered about participating in the financial conversation. And so I wrote 2 books, Women, Wealth, and Winning, and On the Other Side, just to get women to stop being complacent and just roll up their sleeves and get to work. And I'm hoping that's going to help couples build stronger relationships because now there's an actual conversation about finances. And just for women to engage with financial professionals and ask questions and get going on their financial conversations and just participating in it.
I love it. And Amy, how about you?
For me, I think I'm at an inflection point where I've been running fast for many years, and I'm trying to take a step back and look at sometimes the greater impact that it may be possible to have if you can put your energy in the right places with the people who are most receptive to, receiving your help or support towards those things. So some of it is board service, some of it is choosing where to put mentorship and time at work and in the community, and just sort of a more thoughtful approach than maybe I've taken up until now, and anxious to see what comes of that.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
And our last question for all of you is, if you could go back and tell your past self one thing during your difficult season, what would it be? Candy, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. Well, one would be that you're stronger than what you think you are. When you are at your depths of thinking it couldn't get any worse, you are strong enough to get through that. And, to take control of your finances. Don't let someone else control it. And you know what? We don't have to use, like now that my husband's gone, I don't have to use that financial planner. I can find one that works for me and that fits what I want and my needs. And that's what I really want women to know, that there are so many resources out there, and just sit down with some financial planners and find the one that works for you, because that's truly where everything's going to begin moving forward with your money.
Yeah. Awesome. Claudia, if you could go back and tell your past self one thing during that difficult season, what would that be?
I would tell myself, you're going to be okay. And truly, not only that, life on the other side of this challenge is going to be so much more beautiful and fulfilling than you could imagine right now.
Awesome. I love that. And Amy, I know for yours, we didn't touch on a difficult season, but what would you tell, your past self, or someone who is thinking, women and finances, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, just in case anyone thinks I haven't had difficult seasons, I promise you I have. And I would say that what got me through those was the idea that you need to make decisions with an idea of whether or not they get you closer to the ideal life that you want to be living and the place you want to be and who you want to be as a person. And if you look at these huge, big decisions that are overwhelming and just think like, will this decision get me closer to where I want to be or not? And if not, you just move on. You don't even need to make the decision. If it can get you closer, move in that direction. And that concept of compound interest is not just about money. It happens in your career, your life, your relationships. It has to be that you're moving towards who you want to be, and we as women can control that.
Yeah, that's so true about the compound interest. That's for sure. This, for me, was such a powerful conversation because as I reflect on all of your stories, it really pinpoints a lot of the themes that we speak to around purse strings. Candy, we always talk about, the average age of a widow is 59. And Amy, even with what you said, working with widows, it's young, right? Women are often in those situations where they become widowed young. And it's about being prepared. And we're always about the message around being prepared, getting your pages in order, your administrative papers in order, getting your estate plans in order, getting your powers of attorney in order. And we feel like we say this like almost like a broken record because it's so, so important. And so many people put it off or say, I'll get to that later. And so many women will say, well, my husband handles that. But Candy, I think your story is a very powerful one that says, you were that person and now you're not that person because you know how powerful it is, where it landed you, right? So your story is a powerful one to women who are saying that to us and every day saying that to us, but we know that they're going to be at some point in a situation where they're going to have to step forward and take care of their financial future, right? And so now you're speaking with take care of yourself, be in the conversation, right? And we're also saying, like you said, Amy, financial professionals need to be able to do their job and say, I need to meet with both parties at the table. I need to make sure both parties know what's going on with the finances so that, Candy, someone like you is not shocked that I have $60,000. You shouldn't be knowing that by opening a piece of mail. So financial professionals should be more comprehensive in their meetings. And if you're not, we would sit at Purse String say, if you're not getting that from your financial professional, find one that will do that for you. Another stat, 70% of women leave their financial professional in the first year of losing their spouse and oftentimes getting divorced because they've never been invited to the conversation. They weren't aware of what's going on. So everything that you're telling us through these stories just emphasizes all of the statistics that we see and constantly are getting in front of women today. And your stories, although very heartbroken, heartache stories, they're very powerful. They're sending messages out to women that said, look, this happened to us and it doesn't have to. There are lots of support systems out there. There are a lot of fantastic financial professionals, Amy like you, Claudia like you, who really know how to help women and really help them live a beautiful life. So congratulations to you, and Candy, your story and being vulnerable enough to tell it is really powerful too. So this podcast is a powerful one. I'm going to share it and I hope all of you will too. So I appreciate all of you coming back and I invite you to share this with, your friends, your colleagues, your sisters, your aunts, all the women in your life so that we can share this message because too many women I sense, you let me know, but from my experience are saying, I let my husband handle it. I will get to that later. Yeah, I know I need to do that. But, there's no time like the present, right? It's best to do it yesterday. But if you didn't get to it yesterday, let's take care of that today. Any thoughts you'd like to add before we wrap this up?
I would love people to know that all the resources that you guys have. Like when the first time we talked, I wish I would have had that paperwork of filling everything out because I wouldn't have been so lost. And I direct people to you guys all the time because it's so important that everybody knows where everything is. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Candy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You've been listening to Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about. Now it's time to take what you've learned and make bold moves towards financial independence. Stay in the know by joining our newsletter for exclusive tools, resources, and updates that keep you financially fearless. Head to pursestrings.co and sign up today. Need a financial professional who gets it? Turn to Purse Strings' curated directory, your go-to resource for financial experts who know how to put you first. Love this episode? Leave us a review and help us empower even more women to own their financial power. Until next time, be financially fearless.